Now the reason it's really so interesting to come back and take a look at Sonic Adventure is because honestly this is a title that I can say that I both love and hate. So why? I've gone through so much talking about Sonic on my channel, so much talking about especially the Adventure series on my channel, talking about how bad Sonic games are, and there's a whole lot of talk about that all over the internet. So I don't want to spend the next couple minutes here just bashing Sonic Adventure blindly. So I really wanted to sit down, play the game again, and really think about it. Why do I both love and hate this game? Why do I both think it's trash, but have respect for it at the same time? So, we'll start with the bad parts. The game is a glitchy mess. Everybody knows that. Even the fans who love this game have to admit that there's just far too many glitches in the game for it to really come off as a true classic. I went over the 6 main characters in the game, and when it comes down to all 6 of them, for the most part, the biggest reason that makes me not want to play as any of them is the fact that there's just so many glitches, and that while you're playing the game, when you're trying to do things and maneuver your way through these tight pathways or fly your way around, you may just randomly die. And that's just not very fun, especially when you're talking about a flagship game featuring one of gaming's most prominent characters. So to break it down, when you talk about Sonic, arguably out of the game, he's the most fun to play. Fortunately, he does have the most levels. Unfortunately, he technically is not the bulk of the game. In his levels, it is of course just running fast, just running straight and running fast. I mean, there's twists and turns. These are probably some of the most explorable and best Sonic levels in the modern era, to be honest, because this was long before the boost gameplay where you could actually really maneuver him slowly and go through the levels. It goes without saying that Sonic plays decently fun. There's just way too many glitches. Tails, on the other hand, is also fun, and he plays the most similar to Sonic, but what really takes away from his levels is the fact that he's racing. So you don't get time to explore, you don't get time to really fly to new platforms and really just see what's there. You have to always be so focused on going. And while that adds a cool gameplay element to it, it also kinda, hampers you if you want to try to enjoy the level. Knuckles is kind of where the game starts to go downhill, honestly. His stages, you do get to explore, and you do get to take time as he's finding the emeralds. However, as time goes on, they get to become a bit boring and a bit tedious. And also, with Knuckles and Tails, you can kind of start to see where it seemed as if these other characters were kind of tacked on. Sonic has 10 full fleshed out stages, and everybody else in the game stages are just sections from his stages. With the exception of Hot Shelter, which is the only stage that is not played by either Sonic, Tails, or Knuckles, which then somewhat makes it a bit unmemorable. So, while they have their own unique gameplay mechanics, the stages themselves don't feel very unique. Now, if it were like the old games where you just went through the same stages and they were basically the same with maybe new areas based on the character's abilities, that's one thing. But in this game, everybody else just feels like they're not fleshed out fully when you talk about stages. When you get to Amy, she also plays a bit similar to Tails, but she's being chased, she's running away from someone. In her stages as well, you don't really get to take time to explore, and there's a whole lot of tension going on as you're trying to escape this boss. And then on top of that, Amy is just terribly slow, and she's the first character that you can really feel where the speed is subtracted, and that really just takes away from the whole Sonic experience. Big, I would love to just bash Big, but I mean, fishing honestly just does not have a place in a Sonic game. So I don't just want to say it's bad or it's terrible, but I would at least try to explain why. In his stages, obviously they're extremely slow. You're not running, you're not really fighting enemies, you're just dropping a lure into the water, throwing a lure into water and letting it sit until you get a fish. So there is some tension, there is some excitement when you do get a bite, but this is just so different from the core gameplay of Sonic, and it honestly really takes away from the experience. I understand that games do come out and have mini games or, you know, sections where you play different things, but for this to be a part of the game that has to be completed in order to beat the game just really takes away from what Sonic Adventure could have been. Finally, E102. In revisiting this game, I kind of don't think he's as bad as a character as I thought that he was. I do still believe that his gameplay mechanics as well, you know, going around as a robot and targeting and shooting, don't necessarily belong as a prominent part in a Sonic game. But honestly, I honestly feel that out of the 5 other characters, his sections are done the best. And it also goes without saying that his story is probably the best story within the whole game. You know, he's a robot and he has become sentient, and he wants to try to help the other, you know, robots that Robotnik has made like him to see life in the same way. But unfortunately, in order to do this, he has to go and kill them all. So it's pretty sad, but it's deep. Now, with all that said, Sonic Adventure just seems like a terrible gameplay. You know, a game with terrible gameplay. Seems like a game that isn't very fun. You know, why would you want to play it? Why do I think this is still an essential part of a Dreamcast collection? Well, this game came out in '98 in Japan and '99 in America. And like a lot of the Dreamcast titles, first of all, it comes off as strong based on nostalgia. It may be hard to get into this game now if you didn't play it in the past, but if you remember the marketing, if you remember the game coming out, it was huge. I mean, on top of the fact that Sonic had made a return, we hadn't seen graphics like this ever before. There were few platformers that, you know, made the transition from 2D to 3D, and then at the time did it, you know, seemingly so well. You know, as time went on, we understood how glitchy it was, but at the time, this felt like a great transition from 2D to 3D. Going and playing this game at a kiosk, seeing the way it interacts with the VMU, all of that was great. So this game, it just, you know, it had such a presence back in the day that a lot of people are still writing off that same presence and are able to have respect for it today. Also, you do just have to admit that, it was a very ambitious title. And they set out to make a Sonic game with RPG elements, and some of the things that were in this game necessarily, you know, aside from the graphics, also kind of hadn't been done truly in other games. You know, in a lot of platformers, usually the character stays the same way throughout the game, but in this game, you were gaining new abilities, you were finding items. You know, it was another one of the first few platforms. I know Mario 64 obviously had a hub world, but this was another one after that did it. You know, having a hub world and actually going to the stages. And honestly, I kind of feel that this game's hub world is a bit better than the one in Mario 64, because you actually go to where the stages are, and then you see where they branch off from the hub world itself. So that to me was always cool. And while you unfortunately cannot explore the levels, you can explore the hub worlds, so it does still give you a sense of exploration. On top of that, I do think that there are other parts of the game that are worth recognizing as good. For one, the soundtrack. I wasn't a huge fan of some of the character themes, especially with those really Crush 40, emotional rock, you know, live and learn with all those vibes. But a lot of the stage songs and a lot of the jingles, this game does honestly have a really good soundtrack when you really sit down and listen to it. It gets kind of clouded out by the stage things because those play so prominently in the story whenever the characters appear. But if you go into the stages, especially a lot of the different sections, like some in Red Mountain, some in Lost World, you really do get some good musical pieces. Also, as mentioned, you know, the way that the game worked with the VMU was great. And it wasn't just, you know, seeing how the VMU appeared while you were playing the game, but also the VMU mini game that you were able to take away from the game, which was like a Chow Virtua Pet. And the reason why I think that is so important is because one of the big things with looking at Sega and how I want to analyze Sega is how well did they do with supporting their consoles. And the way that they did the VMU with Sonic Adventure was great. It was probably the best VMU minigame that was out at the time. So the fact that they put so much thought into that and so much support on that feature for their console really showed that they were truly trying. And overall, that's pretty much how I judge this game. They did a terrible job with the physics. They did a terrible job with glitch checking the game. That was not great. But I do understand that they were really truly trying to make an ambitious title and really trying to do something groundbreaking with Sonic Adventure. And that is the reason why I still do have some respect for this game. And I still kind of will put it in the category of good Sonic games. Overall, I believe that Sonic Adventure was a title that could be like a black sheep, or could be, you know, like a series downfall, and then you go past that. You know, you move up from there. I think some of the problem with Sonic Adventure came in the fact that after that they didn't always go up. When you look at Sonic Adventure itself, while it is glitchy, it does still deserve its praise and accolades for being one of the most ambitious games on that console and being one of the most ambitious games of that era. So, that said, this is MarzVindicator, and that was the first episode of Dreams Revisited. There will be a lot more content like this with me going back and looking at other Dreamcast games, and I'll probably get a little bit more in depth and a little more entertaining when it comes to other games, because there'll be something new that I haven't talked about. I've done a lot of talk about Sonic and Sonic Adventure, and I'm kind of done with it. So do expect to see Sonic Adventure 2, of course, but overall I'm excited to really tackle the rest of the Dreamcast library. I'm out.